The sky was dark. Ashes floated in the air like snow. The ground was broken. Fire still burned in the distance. Luma ran barefoot across the dirt. Her small legs shook with fear. She held a small pendant tightly in her hand. Her clothes were torn. Her eyes were wide, filled with sadness. Her mother was gone. Only hours ago, Luma had a family. She had a home, a warm place. Now, all of that was destroyed. Bombs had fallen from the sky. Strange machines attacked her village. The loud sound of war was everywhere. Screams, fire, and smoke covered her world. She had only one thought now: escape. Her mother had whispered something before dying. "Find the humans," she said. "Go to the blue planet. They will help you." That was her final breath. Luma cried, but she ran. She found a crashed pod nearby. Her tiny fingers pressed buttons. Somehow, the pod lifted into the sky. The pod flew for a long time. It passed stars and empty space. Luma fell asleep inside. She woke up when the pod landed. She looked outside and saw green hills. The air smelled clean. The sky was blue. Not gray like her planet. This was Earth. Luma stepped out slowly. Her legs still hurt. She walked for hours. Birds watched her from the trees. She saw no people, only silence. Finally, she found a small cabin in the woods. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone was inside. She walked to the door and knocked. Once, then twice. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time. The door opened a little. A man stood there, tall, quiet, strong. His face had scars. His eyes were tired but sharp. He looked at her for a long time. She didn't speak at first. Her lips trembled. Then she said in a soft voice, "Can I please stay with you?" There was silence. "My mother died today," she added. The man didn't answer. He looked behind her into the trees. He seemed to be thinking deeply. Then he slowly opened the door wider. "You can stay forever," he said. Luma stepped inside. The cabin was warm. There was a small fire in the fireplace, wooden chairs, a table, and shelves with books. She sat near the fire, her hands still shaking. The man gave her a blanket. He didn't ask too many questions, but his eyes were full of worry. "My name is Jack," he finally said. "I live here alone." Luma looked up. "I'm Luma." She replied. Jack nodded. "You came from far away," he said. She didn't answer, only held her pendant tighter. That night, Luma ate warm soup. She looked around the cabin. There were pictures on the wall. One showed Jack in a uniform. He had medals on his chest. Another photo showed him with a young woman. Maybe his wife, maybe his sister. All of them had smiles. Jack sat quietly near the window. He stared outside. Then he said something strange. "You weren't followed. Were you?" Luma looked at him, surprised. She didn't know what to say. "I mean, no one saw you come here?" Jack asked. "I don't know," she whispered. Jack stood up. He walked to a small screen on the wall. It showed a map. Red dots started blinking. "They followed you," Jack said softly. His voice was calm, but firm. Luma's eyes filled with fear again. She stood up and backed away from the window. "Who?" she asked. Jack didn't answer right away. He stared at the screen. "They're not from here," he finally said, "and they're not friendly." He turned to her. "You can stay," he repeated. "But this place may not be safe for long." Luma's hand touched her pendant. It glowed softly. Jack noticed it. "What is that?" he asked. "It was my mother's," Luma said. "She said it would protect me." Jack nodded slowly. He turned off the lights. The cabin went dark. He grabbed a small case from under the floor. Inside were weapons and tools. Luma stepped closer. "Are you a soldier?" she asked. "Not anymore," he replied. "But maybe I need to be again, outside." Something moved in the shadows. A drone flew past the trees. It scanned the cabin with a red light. Then it flew back into the sky. Jack watched it from the window, he whispered. This just got serious inside the cabin. Luma held the blanket tighter. She didn't know where she truly was, but somehow she felt safer than ever before. She looked at Jack. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. They were strangers, but not for long. The next morning, the forest was quiet. Birds sang softly in the distance. Sunlight came through the window. Luma opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, she forgot everything. She was warm, safe, and alive. But then, she remembered. Her home, her mother, the war, and now, this strange new place. Jack was already awake. He sat outside on the porch, cleaning a metal device. He didn't look like a kind man, but he hadn't hurt her. He gave her food, a blanket, and shelter. That was more than anyone else had done. Luma walked out slowly. Jack didn't turn his head. You sleep like a rock, he said. I guess you needed it. Luma stood beside him, silent. The forest seemed peaceful, but Jack didn't smile. His eyes scanned the trees like a soldier. What are you looking for? Luma asked. Jack set the device down. He pointed to the trees. They're watching. He said. Luma stepped back, afraid. Not right now, maybe, he added. But they will be back. Who are they? She asked. Jack stood up and walked to the edge of the porch. They're not human, he said. They don't care who you are. They don't care about peace. He paused, then added, and they want you. Luma looked down at her pendant. She didn't understand why it glowed. She didn't know why her mother told her to find humans. But Jack knew something. Something he wasn't saying yet. You're not the first alien I've seen, Jack said. There was a time when humans and aliens worked together. But the war ruined everything. He looked at her again. You're the first one I've helped. Luma sat on the porch steps. Why me? She asked. Jack didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to a metal bike hidden under branches. We need to leave, he said. This cabin won't stay safe for long. They packed quickly. Jack put canned food, tools, and a small box into a bag. He handed Luma a thick coat. She looked up at him and asked, Where are we going? Jack strapped on a small computer screen to his wrist, an old resistance hideout. He said, Underground, deep in the hills, they might help us. The ride was long. The metal bike hovered above the ground. It hummed softly as they moved between the trees. The forest turned into rocky land. Luma held on tightly. Cold wind hit her face. But she didn't complain. After hours of riding, they reached a hill with no entrance. Jack pressed a button on his wrist. The rocks shifted, revealing a steel door. Welcome to the molehole, he said with a half smile. They stepped inside. Dim lights lit a tunnel that led downward. The door closed behind them. Inside, they saw humans. Some wore armor. Others had tools and scanners. They all stopped and stared at Luma. She's a child, one man said. Confused, Jack nodded. But not just any child. A woman with short red hair stepped forward. She was the leader. Her name was Captain Wren. She looked at Luma carefully, then turned to Jack. You brought an alien here. She asked, Jack replied. She's being hunted. She needs protection. Wren frowned. We can't even protect ourselves. Jack stepped closer. She's different, he said. She may be the key, some of the group whispered. To each other, one man, angry, shouted, What if they follow her here? They'll wipe us out. Luma looked down, afraid. But before anyone could speak more, a scream echoed from another room. They ran toward the sound. A young boy was lying on the floor. His leg was cut deeply, bleeding fast. People backed away in panic. No medkits left. Someone yelled. Luma knelt down beside the boy. She touched his leg gently. Her pendant glowed again. A soft light moved from her hand into the wound. The bleeding stopped. The flesh began to close. Everyone stood in shock. Captain Wren's eyes widened. "How did you do that?" she whispered. Luma looked up, tears in her eyes. I don't know," she said. "I just didn't want him to die." Jack turned to the others. "Now do you see?" He said, "She's not a threat. She's a miracle." The room went silent. But behind the silence was a new feeling. Hope. Then a beeping sound came from Wren's tablet. A drone had been spotted near the base. Everyone froze. Jack clenched his fists. "They've found us again," he said. "We need to move." Captain Wren looked at Luma. She didn't see a child anymore. She saw something more. Something powerful. Something dangerous. And something worth saving. Luma stepped beside Jack. She was ready to run again. But deep inside, she wondered if she would ever stop running. The underground base was no longer quiet. Alarms echoed through the metal walls. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. People rushed through the tunnels. Captain Wren barked orders through a headset. Jack stood beside her, gripping his weapon. Luma stood back, watching everyone move in panic. She didn't know what to do. She only knew she didn't want anyone else to get hurt. "They're scanning the mountain," Wren said. "They'll find the entrance soon." Jack nodded. "Then?" "We leave before they knock." Luma turned to Jack. "Why are they following me?" she asked. Jack looked at her pendant, still glowing faintly. "Because of that," he said, "and maybe because of you." The group moved quickly through the base. Steel doors opened and closed as they passed. Wren led them into a chamber. With large screens, on the main screen, 3 dark ships hovered in the sky. Their shape was smooth and silent, like shadows in the clouds. "They're hunters," Wren said. "Silent, fast, and deadly." Jack frowned. "They're not here to talk." Luma looked at the ships. She felt something cold in her chest, like the ships were calling to her, or maybe watching her. A soldier named Briggs stepped forward. He pointed at the screen. "They're using cloaked drones," he said, scanning deep, looking for her signal. Wren turned to Luma. "Can you stop it?" she asked. Luma shook her head. "I don't know how." Wren bit her lip, thinking, "Then we have to destroy the signal," she said. Jack stepped up. "I'll go," he said. "Take a jammer out there. Break the scan." Wren handed him a small black box. "This is your only shot," she said. "After that, we move underground." Jack turned to Luma. "Stay close to Wren," he said. "I'll be back soon." Luma nodded, but her heart felt heavy. Something didn't feel right. Jack left through a narrow tunnel. He moved fast, climbing toward the surface. Above ground, the forest was still, but the sky was not. One of the hunter ships moved closer. Its engines made no sound, but the air around it shimmered like heat. Jack reached a cliff and placed the jammer down. He pressed the button. A blue light pulsed from the device far above. The hunter ship slowed. Its scan was blocked. Jack smiled, just for a second. Then something moved behind him. A flash of light. A drone, nearly invisible, rushed forward. It fired a pulse shot. Jack rolled aside just in time. He fired back. Hitting the drone, it sparked and crashed into the trees. But it wasn't alone. Back underground, Luma paced in circles. She could feel something. Her pendant glowed brighter now. Wren noticed it. "What's happening to it?" she asked. "I don't know," Luma whispered. "It reacts when people are in danger." Another screen lit up. A camera feed showed Jack running through the woods. More drones followed him. "He needs help," Luma said. "I can't just stand here." "You're just a kid," Briggs said sharply. "You'll only slow him down." Luma stepped forward, eyes bright with emotion. "I'm not just a kid," she said. And for the first time, her voice was strong. Wren looked at her, then handed her a small device. "Use this to track him," she said. "But don't go alone." Briggs sighed. "I'll take her," he said. "If she gets killed, it's on you." Above ground, Jack reached a cave. He ducked inside, breathing hard. The jammer was still working, but the drones were closing in. His weapon was low on charge. His leg was bleeding from a shot. He leaned against the wall, then he heard a sound. Not a drone, footsteps. He raised his weapon, but lowered it quickly. It was Luma and Briggs. "You shouldn't be here," Jack said, angry and worried. "We had no choice," Luma replied. "They were going to kill you." Briggs fired at a drone above the cave. "Less talking, more running," he said. They moved together through the forest. The jammer kept the scan blocked, but more drones were coming. Too many to fight. Then Luma stopped. She looked at her pendant. It was glowing bright blue now. She raised it into the air. The sky above them shimmered. For a moment, everything went silent. Even the hunter ships paused. A pulse of light burst. From the pendant, it spread across the trees, the rocks, the sky. The drones froze in midair. And then fell. Lifeless, Jack looked at her. Stunned? "What? What did you just do?" "I don't know," Luma said. "But I felt like—" "They listened to me." Wren's voice came through the cum. "The ships are pulling back," she said. The scan just ended. Jack, Briggs, and Luma stood in silence. The forest was quiet again. But the danger wasn't over. Back underground. The others watched the sky. They didn't know what had just happened. But one thing was clear now. Luma was no ordinary child, and whatever she carried inside her was strong enough to stop a hunter ship. For now, the forest was quiet again. No hunter ships in the sky. No drones in the trees. Only the sound of wind moving through the leaves. Luma sat beside the fire inside the resistance base. Her pendant rested in her hand, glowing gently. Jack sat across from her, bandages wrapped around his leg. Briggs leaned against the wall, watching. Silently, Captain Wren had left the room, giving them space. Luma stared into the fire. The flames danced like memories. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "She always said the fire was alive." "Who?" Jack asked. "My mother," Luma replied. "She said fire remembers everything." Jack didn't speak. He let her continue. Luma closed her eyes, and in the quiet, her memories began to return. She was back on her home planet, Alaris. A world of silver trees and crystal skies. Her mother's voice filled the air, gentle and warm. "Luma," she would say, "you are more than you know." They lived in a small house on a cliff. Waves crashed below. Her mother grew glowing flowers. She used them to heal sick creatures from the forest. Luma remembered sitting in her lap, her mother brushing her hair, telling her stories of stars and of humans. "They are strong," her mother had said. Strong not because of power, but because they choose kindness. They fight for what they believe. "One day, you'll meet one." Luma opened her eyes again. Jack was still watching her. She spoke slowly. "She believed in humans before I ever saw one." Jack looked away. She was smarter than most. He said. Briggs walked forward. "You said she healed people." "Yes." Luma nodded. "She used light from the flowers, from the planet itself. She said our people were connected to life." Jack leaned closer. "What happened to her?" Luma's face turned sad again. "The war came," she said. "Machines, invaders, fire falling from the sky. She hid me inside a cave." Luma continued. "She gave me this pendant and told me to run. She said the humans would understand. She said they would protect me. She stayed behind to slow them down." The room went silent. Even Briggs looked down. Jack stood and walked to a shelf. He pulled down a small box and opened it. Inside were medals and old photos. "My wife died in the first wave," Jack said. "She worked in peace talks with alien ambassadors. She believed this war could be stopped. She was killed by the same machines." Luma looked at the photo of Jack's wife. She had kind eyes and a bright smile. "She looks like she believed in something," Luma said. Jack nodded. She believed in people. Just then, Wren stepped back into the room. "We found something," she said. She placed a small device on the table. A message began to play. It was old, glitchy, but clear. A woman's voice echoed. It was Luma's mother. "If you're hearing this," the voice said, "my daughter has survived. She is the link between our world and yours. She carries the last code of Ilari peace. She can open the gate," Luma gasped. "What gate?" Wren played the next part. "Hidden beneath the ruins of Thalvari lies a door. When it opens, peace will return, but only if both sides choose it." The message ended. Silence filled the room again. Luma looked at Jack. "What does it mean?" she asked. Jack turned to Wren. "You've heard of Thalvari?" Wren nodded. "Old alien city," she said, "destroyed early in the war." Briggs stepped forward. "Is she supposed to go there?" "She's just a kid." Jack shook his head. "She's not just anything anymore." Luma held the pendant tightly. It pulsed like a heartbeat. She didn't know how to open any gate, but something inside her felt different, like something had been unlocked. Wren walked to a map on the wall. She marked a red dot deep in the mountain range. "That's where Thalvari used to be. It's dangerous, but it might be our only chance." Briggs frowned. "If the hunters find out, they'll try to stop her." Jack looked at Luma. "Do you want to do this?" he asked. Luma thought of her mother, her voice, her smile. Her last words. She stood up slowly, her voice steady. "Yes," she said. "If it means peace, if it means no more children like me have to run." Jack nodded. "Then we go." Together, Wren added. "I'll send a team with you." Briggs sighed. "Well, guess I'm not getting any sleep." Luma smiled for the first time in days. It was small, but real. The journey ahead would be hard. But now, she wasn't alone. Outside, the stars lit the sky. Above the hills, above the war, a small girl with a glowing pendant had just agreed to change the future. The air was cold as the group moved through the narrow mountain pass. Snow covered the edges of the cliffs. Their boots crunched softly on frozen ground. The stars above were hidden behind dark clouds. No one spoke. The silence was heavy, like the mountain itself was holding its breath. Luma walked in the middle of the group. Jack stayed close to her side. Briggs followed from behind, his eyes scanning the shadows. Captain Wren had stayed behind at the base, but she promised to watch their signals closely. If anything went wrong, she would call them back. The ruins of Thalvari were still days away. They had to cross rough terrain, avoid hunter patrols, and stay hidden from the sky. The pendant around Luma's neck glowed softly. It guided them like a compass, always pointing towards something unseen. One night, they stopped to rest in an abandoned outpost. Rusty walls, broken equipment, and scattered papers filled the place. Jack started a small fire. Briggs stood at the door. Silent Luma sat near a wall, her hands wrapped around a warm cup. She looked at Jack. "Do you really think the gate is real?" she asked. Jack nodded. "I've seen strange things in this war," he said. "Stranger than glowing pendants and alien memories." Briggs spoke from the doorway. "What if it's a trap?" he asked. "What if the gate doesn't bring peace?" Luma looked down. "I don't know," she said, "but it's the only thing my mother left me." Later that night, while the others slept, Briggs stepped outside. He tapped a small device on his wrist. A red light blinked once. A message sent. He spoke quietly into the device. "She's with us," he said. "Heading to the gate, prepare the capture team." He ended the call and looked back at the cabin, his eyes cold, empty. He didn't want to betray them, but he had made a deal. His brother had been taken by the enemy months ago. This was the price for his release. Morning came with wind and snow. They continued the journey. The terrain grew steeper. Cliffs narrowed into dangerous paths. Luma nearly slipped. Jack caught her in time. "We're close," she said. The pendant pulsed stronger now. They reached a wide clearing surrounded by ancient stone. Carvings covered the ground, symbols no one could read except Luma. "I've seen this in my dreams," she whispered. She stepped forward. The pendant glowed bright blue. The ground shook gently. The stones lit up one by one. Suddenly, a loud noise came from above. A ship dropped from the clouds, dark, fast, and deadly. Hunter squad incoming. Jack grabbed his weapon. "Run!" He shouted. Drones landed around them, weapons raised. Briggs pulled out his blaster, but instead of firing at the drones, he aimed it at Jack. "Don't move," Briggs said. Jack froze. "What are you doing?" he asked. Luma's eyes went. "Why do you told them?" No choice," Briggs said. "My brother's alive. They promised to free him. They only want her." He looked at Luma. "They said they wouldn't hurt you." Luma stepped back. The drones closed in. Jack raised his hands slowly. "You're trusting machines to keep their word." He asked. "They don't understand mercy." Briggs hesitated for a moment. Guilt crossed his face, but then the drone leader spoke. "Deliver the girl," it said, "or you all die." Luma looked at her pendant. It flickered, dim and weak. Fear filled her chest, but Jack stepped in front of her. "If you want her," he said, "you'll have to go through me." The drones aimed. Luma stepped forward suddenly. "No!" she shouted. She held the pendant high. It flashed blinding light. The ancient symbols glowed again. A circle of energy formed around her. The drones fired. The shots hit the energy shield, but bounced away. The shield held. Briggs dropped his weapon. He stared at her in shock. "I didn't know she could do that." "No one did," Jack said. "She's more than they think." The drones backed off, but the lead ship fired a pulse. It struck the mountain, shaking the ground. Rocks fell, splitting the group. Briggs was trapped behind rubble. Luma and Jack escaped down a tunnel, dark and deep, hidden beneath the stones, as the entrance collapsed. The light from Luma's pendant lit the way. She turned to Jack. "I'm sorry about Briggs." Jack shook his head. "He made a mistake, but I've made some too." They kept walking through the tunnel. The path was old, carved long ago. Strange markings lit up as Luma passed them. They didn't know what waited ahead, but they had no choice now. The enemy knew. The betrayal had changed everything but the gate. The gate might still be real, and if it was, it had to be reached before anyone else found it. The tunnel led into a vast underground chamber. The ceiling was high, carved from ancient rock. Blue lights flickered across the walls. Symbols glowed softly under Luma's feet. Jack kept his weapon close, scanning the shadows. Luma held the pendant, which now pulsed like a heartbeat. They were beneath the ruins of Thalvair, and something deep below was awakening. Each step echoed like a drumbeat in the silence. Every corner seemed to watch them. The air felt heavy, filled with old energy and forgotten voices. Jack glanced at her. "You okay?" he asked. Luma nodded. "I think. It's guiding me." Meanwhile, above ground, the hunter ships circled the mountain, black and silent, like birds waiting to strike. Captain Wren watched from a remote drone feed. Her team scrambled inside the base, preparing defenses. She grabbed the radio. "All squads," she said, "we hold the line here. They're not getting through." Briggs sat in the medical room, injured but awake. He stared at the floor, guilt burning in his chest. A nurse walked past. He looked up and said, "Tell Wren I want to help." Back underground, Luma and Jack reached a stone bridge. Below, it was a deep chasm filled with glowing fog. At the center of the chamber stood a giant arch. It wasn't made of stone or metal. It looked alive, like a doorway. Breathing slowly, the gate, Luma whispered. She stepped closer. The pendant's glow matched the rhythm of the arch. It was calling her, or waiting for her. Jack held her back. "Careful," he said. "We don't know what happens when." "It opens? I'm not afraid," Luma replied. "I feel like I've been here before, far above them." The hunter ships began to descend. Drones dropped from their bellies like falling stars. Resistance fighters took position behind barriers. Ren shouted, "Fire on my command." Lasers lit the sky. Explosions shook the cliffs. The ground rumbled. Even in the tunnels below, back inside the chamber, the gate suddenly flared with light. The arch opened slightly, a wave of energy pushed outward. Jack stumbled. Luma stood firm. Then came a voice, not human, not alien, but something ancient and deep. "To paths," it said. "Open the gate and unite, or turn away and lose everything." Luma looked at Jack. "I have to open it," she said. Jack nodded. "I believe in you." Luma stepped forward. She raised the pendant and placed it into the center of the arch. It sank in like it belonged. Light exploded outward in rings. Symbols lit across the entire chamber. The fog below vanished. The gate opened above ground. The sky cracked with a blinding beam of light. Even the hunter ships paused. The drones froze in midair. The resistance fighters stared in awe. Ren shouted into the radio, "It's her! She's doing it!" Inside the gate, a golden corridor appeared. Stars floated around them. Visions of peace, of families reunited, of worlds healing. Luma saw her mother's face, smiling, proud. "You did it," her voice whispered. Then the sound of metal filled the air. Hunter. Drones dropped into the chamber. Weapons raised. Jack jumped in front of Luma, firing his blaster. One drone fell, then another. But more kept coming. Luma turned from the gate. She held her hands out. The energy from the arch flowed into her. Her body glowed with light. She stepped forward. The drones opened fire. The beams hit the light around her, but didn't break through. She raised her arms. A pulse of light shot outward. The drones were thrown back like leaves in a storm. Jack stared at her. "You're not a child," he said. "You're something new." Outside, the ships began to retreat. The energy from the gate reached the sky. The war machines turned back. They had lost control. They were no longer the strongest. Briggs, still limping, made it to the battlefield. He grabbed a rifle and joined the line. Ren gave him a look. "You sure?" she asked. He nodded. "No more running." Luma stepped back from the gate. She pulled the pendant out. The gate stayed open, but calm returned to the chamber. Jack sat on the stone floor. Now breathing hard, Luma sat beside him. "I opened it," she said. Jack nodded. "You did?" Up above, the sky cleared. Stars shone once more. People looked up with hope for the first time in years. And though the war wasn't over yet, something bigger had changed. A door was now open, a path toward peace, and a child from another world had led the way. The gate stood open, silent now, but glowing softly. The energy inside had calmed. The air felt warm and full of peace. No more drones, no more ships in the sky. Just quiet and the sound of breathing. Jack stood at the edge of the stone bridge. His leg still hurt, but he barely noticed. He looked at the sky above the ruins. Stars were finally visible again, clear, bright, and full of promise. Luma sat near the gate. The pendant lay in her lap. It no longer pulsed with light, but its warmth remained, like a quiet memory, a part of her mother, always with her. Captain Ren arrived with a team from the base. They moved slowly, weapons lowered, their eyes wide as they saw the open gate. Briggs followed behind, limping but alive. He walked straight to Luma. "I'm sorry," he said. Luma looked at him, then nodded. "You made a mistake," she said, "but you came back." Ren stepped forward. "This changes everything," she whispered. "The war, the future." Jack looked at her, and the girl who made it all possible. Luma didn't speak. She was still listening to the hum of the gate. It spoke without words, not with sound, but with feeling, peace, hope, home. The message from her mother echoed in her mind. She is the link, it had said. And now, the link was complete. One side of the war had opened the door. The other side would soon hear it too. Ren opened a comlink. She called the resistance leaders across Earth. The gate is real, she said, and it's open. There is a way to end this. The news spread like wildfire. In secret bases, in hidden shelters, people lifted their heads. Civilians cried. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Hope had returned. A week passed. No ships attacked. No bombs fell. Instead, quiet filled the skies. The Alari elders responded to the signal. A group of peace envoys arrived through the gate. They bowed. Before Luma, you are the child of the light. They said, you've done what we could not. Earth leaders met with them. Face to face, not behind screens. Old wounds were still there, but something new had begun. A chance to heal. Luma stayed in the mountains with Jack. They repaired. The cabin planted new trees, cooked simple meals. It wasn't a palace, but it was home. One night, she asked Jack, do you think my mother would be proud? Jack smiled gently. She'd be amazed, he said. She gave you to the stars. And you brought back peace. Luma sat on the porch. She looked at the sky. The stars no longer looked far. They felt close. Like old friends, children from both. Worlds began to arrive. Some had lost families. Others had lost homes. Jack and Luma welcomed them all. The cabin became more than a shelter. It became a family. Briggs visited often. He built small machines for the children. Ren helped organize. Trade between the planets. The gate became a bridge, not a battlefield. One day, a young boy asked Luma, are you a human or an alien? She thought for a moment, then smiled. I think I'm both, she said. I'm just someone who stayed. The children laughed. They didn't care what planet she came from. They just knew she was kind and brave. And years passed. The war became history. The ruins of Thalvari were turned into a garden, a place of memory and peace. And at the center stood a statue of a young girl holding a glowing pendant. Her name was remembered, not as a soldier, not as a queen, but as the one who opened the gate, as the one who said, you can stay forever. Jack grew older. His beard turned white. But every night, he sat on the same porch, and Luma sat beside him. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't, but they always watched the stars. And the stars always watched back.